My name is Margaret. I am 58 years old, and I have always valued precision. For 30 years as a financial planner, I managed other people's futures, turning chaos into predictable, comfortable security. I retired early, comfortable in my own right, living in a paid-off home in a quiet Denver suburb. I was not fabulously wealthy, but I was secure. I managed my own small portfolio, just 2 rental condos downtown, and they provided a steady, satisfying stream of income. I was sharp. I was organized. I believed, in complete control. Then Julian came home. My son, 30 years old, all charisma and unsteady career choices. He showed up 3 months ago, his suitcases looking worn, his smile just a little too bright. It was right after my fall. I had slipped on the back steps I had walked down thousands of times. It was nothing, really. A sprained wrist, a bruised ego. But Julian treated it like a catastrophe. "Mom, you're all alone here," he insisted, his voice thick with a manufactured concern I had not heard in years. "I'm moving back in. I'll take care of you." I was suspicious even then. The slip felt odd. I remembered the step being slick, but it had not rained in a week. Still, he was my son. Part of me, the mother part, was relieved to have him home, to feel needed, even as the planner in me raised a red flag. The first few months were, admittedly, perfect. It was the Julian I remembered from before the world started disappointing him. He cooked. He fixed the dripping faucet in the guest bath. He even, much to my surprise, offered to help me modernize my finances. "Mum, you're still using paper ledgers for the rentals. Let me set you up with some software," he had said, laughing gently. He was so helpful. He reorganized my home office, the small bedroom where I kept 3 decades of financial records, tax documents, and the deeds to the properties. Then the helpfulness started to feel different. I would walk into the kitchen and he would be on his phone, whispering, his back to me. The moment my foot hit the tile, the call would end. "Just a recruiter. Mom," he would say, turning around with that wide, empty smile. "This market is tough." A few weeks later, he decided my office was no longer suitable. "It feels damp in here. Mum, it smells musty. You don't want mold getting into all these important papers." I had not smelled anything. The room was bone dry. Before I could argue, he was moving my desk, my filing cabinets, my life's work, into the spare bedroom downstairs, the one next to the laundry. It was smaller, darker. "This is much better," he announced, wiping his hands. The next day, I went to go into my old office, just to grab a book I had left on the shelf. The doorknob would not turn. He had changed the lock. When I asked him about it, he just shrugged, patting my arm. "It's for your protection, Mom. That room has all your sensitive documents, bank statements, social security info. We can't be too careful. I'll keep the key safe for you." He said it so reasonably, so caringly, but he did not offer me the key. That was when the real chill set in. I was a retired financial planner living in a house I owned outright, managing properties I had bought with my own savings, and suddenly I was locked out of my own office. Julian's devotion no longer felt like care. It felt suffocating. It felt like I was being managed. He was not just organizing my papers. He was organizing me, pushing me into a smaller space, locking away the parts of my life he wanted to control. The charming boy was gone, replaced by a man with hurried whispers and a set of keys that did not include me. Something was terribly wrong. I waited until Julian left, claiming he had a networking lunch. The house was silent. I went upstairs, back to the hallway where my old office was. I stood in front of the door. It was my door, in my house. I pulled out the original brass key from my kitchen drawer, the one that had opened this lock for 25 years. I slid it in. It stopped, hitting solid metal, refusing to go more than a quarter-inch deep. He had not just added a lock, he had replaced the entire mechanism, the deadbolt, the knob, everything. It was new, sleek, and foreign, a violation in brushed nickel. When he returned that afternoon, smelling faintly of expensive cologne, I was waiting in the kitchen. I kept my voice level. "Julian, my key doesn't work in the office door." He did not even pause in hanging up his jacket. "Oh, that... right. I meant to tell you." He walked past me to the refrigerator, pulling out a bottle of sparkling water. The old one was junk. "Mum, a credit card could pop that thing. I put in a high-security lock. You know, for your protection?" I crossed my arms. "I see. Where is my key?" He smiled, that bright, empty smile again. "It came with two. I have mine, and I have put the spare somewhere safe. I'll get it for you as soon as I remember where I put it. My mind is just all over the place with these interviews." It was perfect. Too perfect. The casual tone, the preemptive excuse of interviews, the arm pat. It was a performance. He had no intention of giving me that key. My stomach tightened. This was the first blatant lie, delivered as smoothly as a bank transaction. With the lie settling between us, I started to truly see things. My son, who claimed he was living lean while job hunting, was dressing better than he had in years. He had a new pair of leather shoes that looked Italian and cost, I estimated, at least $400. His watch was new, a sleek silver chronograph I did not recognize. And then there was the car. He had been using my reliable sedan, but last week he had come home in a rented luxury SUV. "It is just for a few days, Mum," he had explained breezily. "I need to make an impression at this final round interview. Image is everything." But the few days turned into a week, and now another. He was paying a daily rate for a vehicle that cost more than my condo mortgage payments, all while claiming to be saving. The numbers were not adding up. I am a numbers person. It is what I do. I still had the joint household account we had set up when he moved in. I paid the utilities and groceries from it. He was supposed to chip in for his expenses. I logged in that night, my hands steady on the keyboard in the dark of my new, cramped downstairs office. I scrolled through the transactions. My deposits were there, regular as clockwork. His contributions were non-existent. Instead, there were withdrawals, small amounts, always just under the daily limit. $100 here, $200 there, 3 times a week. It was the pattern of someone bleeding an account dry, trying not to set off alarms. He was draining my money while living under my roof. The anger came fast, a hot flush that blurred my vision. How could he? After everything, I wanted to storm upstairs and throw the bank statement in his face. But just as I was about to stand, I heard his voice from the patio. He was outside, pacing again, his voice low and sharp. "I told you I need more time," he hissed. I froze, leaning closer to the window, which was cracked open. "You do not just Move that kind of asset? A pause. I could hear the muffled buzzing of the person on the other end. No, I will have the money. I will have all of it. Just give me a few more weeks. I am handling it. I could not breach that door. Julian was too careful, and I knew nothing about picking high-security locks. A forced entry was out of the question. It would reveal my hand. I needed eyes and ears. I needed someone who saw the neighborhood from the outside. Someone who was not part of this suffocating internal drama. I thought of Jim Henderson. He lives 2 doors down, in the grey colonial with the perfectly edged lawn. He is 70 years old, a retired police chief, and he misses nothing. He is a man of rigid routine and constant observation, the kind of man who notices when a car is parked for 10 minutes too long, or when the mail carrier is late by 3 minutes. I caught him the next morning while he was retrieving his newspaper, precisely at 6:15 a.m., as always. "Jim?" I said, keeping my voice low as I walked over. "I wonder if I might ask for your advice on a security matter." His eyes, still sharp and assessing, met mine over the top of his reading glasses. "Margaret. Of course. Come over for coffee. Say, 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock sharp, sitting in his immaculate kitchen. I laid it out. I kept my voice steady, professional, factual. The sudden move-in, the convenient fall. The newly locked office I could no longer access. The whispered phone calls I was not meant to hear. I focused on the asset he was trying to move and the time he desperately needed. Henderson listened, nodding slowly, not interrupting once. He steepled his fingers, a habit from his old job. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment, staring out his window toward my house. "I am glad you came to me, Margaret," he finally said, his voice a low rumble. "I have been concerned." He stood and walked to the window. "I did not want to alarm you, but I have seen your Julian, and not just at the grocery store. I am an early riser, as you know. But sometimes I am up late." He looked back at me, his face grim. "3 times in the last 2 weeks, a car has parked at the end of the block, down by the cul-de-sac, always late. After 2 a.m., Julian goes out, gets in the passenger seat. They sit there for maybe 20 minutes. Then he gets out and walks back. Fast." "What kind of car?" I asked, my blood running cold. "A black sedan? Tinted windows? No front plate?" "The men who get out, they do not look like they are from around here. They look like collectors." He paused, then went to a small desk in the corner of the kitchen. "There is something else." He picked up a small notepad. "I see the mail carrier. Your regular man. Frank is on vacation. The substitute is sloppy. He misdelivered some of your mail here by mistake last week. I returned most of it, but I recognized the return addresses on 2 of them." He looked down at the notepad. "The Mirage in Las Vegas, the Caesars Palace marketing department, and 2 other letters from places I recognize as high-interest quick loan companies. The kind of places that break your legs if you miss a payment." The pieces clicked into place with the sickening force of a closing vault. The tough market. The recruiters. The constant, draining need for cash. The asset. It was not a failed business venture. It was not a new investment. My son, my charming, manipulative son, was deep in gambling debt. He owed money to people who sent collectors in black sedans at 2 in the morning. He was using my home, my life, as collateral. "What do I do?" "Jim," I whispered. "If I confront him, he will just lie." You're right, Henderson said. A man that desperate, that deep in a lie, he is dangerous. You cannot show your hand. You have to let him make his move. He's trapped, so he's going to do something drastic, and soon. Then I have to give him the chance, I said, the plan forming instantly, cold and hard. I am a planner, after all. I have to get out of the house. I have to make him think he is safe. I went home. That evening, over the lasagna he had cooked my favorite, I made my move. Julian, darling, I began, forcing a sigh. I have just been so tired lately. This wrist, the stress. I was thinking, you know that spa in Arizona I have always wanted to go to the wellness retreat. His head snapped up, his eyes suddenly bright. Too bright. The spa, Mom. That is a fantastic idea. You deserve it. I was looking online. They have a last-minute opening for a full week. I think I am going to take it. I could leave. Maybe the day after tomorrow. The relief that washed over his face was nauseating. He did not just agree. He celebrated. Absolutely, he said, getting up to clear my plate, though I was not finished. It is perfect. I can even drive you to the airport. Early flight. Late flight. Whatever you need. Do not worry about a thing here. The flight leaves at 9 a.m., I said. Thank you, sweetie. It is so good to have you here to take care of everything. I booked the flight. I packed my bags. I called Henderson from my bathroom with the fan on. It is set, I told him. He is taking me to the airport on Wednesday at 7 a.m. My guest room is ready, Henderson replied. The window has a perfect line of sight to your front door and your old office window. He will not make a move without us seeing it. Wednesday morning came. Julian was cheerful, insisting on carrying my heaviest bag to the car. He drove me to the airport, whistling. He pulled up to the departures curb, gave me a tight hug, and said, "Have the best time. Mum, you have earned it?" "I will," I said, smiling at my son. The liar. I watched him drive away. I walked into the terminal, waited exactly 15 minutes, and walked back out to the arrivals curb, where Jim Henderson was waiting in his sensible sedan. We did not speak on the drive back. When we got to his house, he led me upstairs to the guest room. "He's home," Henderson said, pointing. Julian's rental SUV was already back in my driveway. "Now," I said, settling into the chair by the window. We wait. Julian's hug at the curb was tight, almost suffocating. "Have the best time, Mom," he said, his voice brimming with a false sincerity that made my skin crawl. "You've earned this. Don't worry about anything at all." He insisted on carrying my bag right to the security checkpoint. He stood there, waving, his face a mask of loving concern. He watched me until I put my shoes in the grey bin and walked through the metal detector. He did not leave until I was completely out of sight. A dutiful son seeing his aging mother off. The performance was flawless. I walked. I did not run. To the nearest bathroom. I counted to 100. Slowly. Then I walked back out, went down the escalators to the arrivals level, and stepped back into the Denver air. The taxi I had pre-booked was waiting, exactly as I had arranged. "Just around the corner, please," I said, giving him Henderson's address. I felt like a spy in my own life. I kept my head down, my scarf pulled up. Jim was waiting at his side door, which opened before I even knocked. He just nodded and led me upstairs to the guest room, the observation post. The first day was agonizing. The chair by the window became my world. Jim brought me coffee and sandwiches, and we sat in near silence, a shared, grim purpose between us. I watched my own house across the street. It looked peaceful, mocking me with its normality. Julian's rental SUV sat in the drive. He left once, around noon, for about an hour. He came back with a bag of fast food. He spent the afternoon, I assumed, in my locked office, likely making calls. The sun went down. The lights in my house came on, one by one. It was maddening, seeing him move through the kitchen, getting a drink, completely unaware that he was being watched. He was a stranger in my home. Nothing happened. No black sedans, no late-night visitors, just silence. The second day broke grey and cold. I was back at the window by 7 a.m. Jim was downstairs, reading the paper. At exactly 9:30 a.m., a gleaming black Mercedes sedan pulled up directly in front of my walkway. It was not the collector's car. This one was expensive, polished. A man in a sharp, $1,000 suit stepped out. He checked his reflection in the car window and adjusted his cuffs. My front door opened before the man even reached the steps. Julian was there, smiling, hand extended. He was wearing his new, expensive shoes and a blazer. He looked like he was greeting a business partner, not someone he had just met. They shook hands, but they did not go inside. They started at the curb. The man in the suit pulled out a clipboard and a digital camera. He took a picture of the front of the house. Then he and Julian began to walk the perimeter of the property. Julian was pointing at the roof, at the large oak tree, at the fence line. The man was nodding, taking notes, taking more pictures. Jim. I called down, my voice quiet but urgent. He was beside me in seconds, binoculars already in hand. He was a cop. He was always prepared. "What do you see?" I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. He focused the lenses, his hand rock steady. He's looking at the foundation, now the gutters. He's pointing at the chimney stack. He paused, adjusting the focus on the man's clipboard. The logo on his paperwork. It's Prestige Realty. Margaret. That's the high-end brokerage from Cherry Creek. They don't just sell houses. They sell estates. The binoculars felt heavy in my hand as I took them. Prestige Realty. I knew the name. They handled multi-million-dollar listings. It all crashed down on me. The asset he was trying to move. The time he needed. It was not my stocks. It was not my condos. It was my home. The home I had paid off 20 years ago. The home my late husband and I had built together. He was not just stealing my savings. He was erasing me. He was selling my entire life, right out from under me, while I was supposedly getting a facial in Arizona. The realtor left after about an hour, shaking Julian's hand again. He left a small, tasteful folder with Julian, but did not plant a sign in the yard. Not yet. Julian looked relieved, triumphant. The afternoon brought a different kind of visitor. This time, a grey sedan, a woman in a severe pantsuit carrying a heavy leather briefcase. She looked nothing like a homebuyer. She looked like a lawyer. Julian met her at the door and ushered her inside immediately. They were in the house for less than 30 minutes. When she emerged, Julian was walking with her, holding a large manila envelope. He handed it to her. She looked at it, nodded curtly, and got back in her car. This was not a viewing. This was not a consultation. That was a transaction. He was giving her documents, my documents, the ones locked in my office, deeds, titles, bank records. He was not just planning to sell the house, he was actively doing it. He was moving fast. Jim Henderson was a man who knew how to use a telephone. He spent that afternoon in his study, door closed. I sat in the guest room, watching the minutes tick by, watching my house, a place that now seemed as foreign as the moon. When he finally emerged, his face was set in granite. It was the face of a man who had seen the worst of people, and was, yet again, unsurprised. "Margaret," he said, his voice quiet, which was more terrifying than a shout. "I called in a favor, a big one. My old captain, who now works security for a casino consortium in Vegas." He paused, looking down at the small notepad in his hand. "This is not a kid with a $2,000 credit card debt. This is not a rough patch." "How much, Jim?" "He owes $500,000, Jim said. "And that is just the one creditor we know about, the ones who send men in black sedans. He is in over his head, and he is dragging everything you own down with him. $500,000. The number was so vast it was almost abstract, like a problem in theoretical math. But the consequences were not abstract. They were sitting right across the street. He is not just after the house," I said, the cold realization washing over me. "The condos." "He just left," Jim said, grabbing his keys. "He is heading downtown, toward Capitol Hill." We followed at a distance. Two ghosts in a grey sedan. Jim drove with a practiced, steady hand. Julian, in his flashy rental SUV, was erratic, impatient, weaving through traffic. He was a man running out of time. He did not go to the bars. He did not go to an office building. He pulled up 2 blocks from the address of my first rental property, the 2-bedroom I had bought in 1995. He parked, got out, and walked to the corner. He stood there for a long time, just staring at the building, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "What is he doing?" I whispered. "Checking the merchandise," Jim said grimly. Julian got back in the car and drove across town, toward Lodo, toward my second property, the loft. He did the same thing. He parked. He walked. He stared. "Wait," Jim said, pointing. "Look at the signpost, on the lawn." I squinted. I did not need to. It was bright red. A for sale sign. A name I recognized instantly. Prestige Realty. The same company that had been at my house. "He is faster than I thought," Jim said, his voice hard. We drove back to the Capitol Hill property. There, staked into the small patch of grass by the front steps, was its identical twin. He was not just planning. He was not just exploring options. He was in the process. He had listed my entire real estate portfolio, every brick of the future I had built for myself. He was liquidating my life. That night, he did not stay home. He dressed in his most expensive suit, the new one, and drove the SUV to Cherry Creek. He went to a restaurant where the steaks cost more than a car payment. We sat in Jim's car, parked in a garage across the street, the air cold and sterile. He was not alone. A woman met him at the valet stand. She was tall, blonde, and wore a white dress so tight it looked like it was sewn on. She kissed him, a deep, possessive kiss. I recognized her, Clara, a woman he had introduced me to months ago, just once, as a colleague, a lawyer. They were given a window table, a celebration table. We watched them order champagne. We watched them laugh. We watched him reach across the table and take her hand. He was celebrating the total destruction of his mother. "She is the lawyer from yesterday," I said, the pieces clicking together. "She is more than that," Jim said. He pulled out his phone. "When I saw that black sedan last week, I took precautions. His car has a tracker and a microphone." He tapped an app on his screen. The sound was tinny, distorted by the restaurant's music, but their voices cut through. "The offers on the condos are both cash." Clara's sharp voice said, "We can close on both in 10 days. 10 days, Julian said. His voice was thick with champagne. "That will get them off my back. That will get them to stop calling," she corrected, her tone like ice. "It does not clear the full 500K. For that, we need the house. And we need to move faster than the standard closing, before your mother gets back from her wellness retreat and starts complicating things." "She will not," Julian slurred. She is getting foggy. She'll do whatever I say." There was a pause. I could hear Clara sip her drink. "We are not leaving it to chance. I have the papers drawn up. You need to expedite the process. You are the loving son. You are worried about her, especially after that fall. You are going to get her to sign a medical power of attorney." My breath caught in my throat. "A what?" Julian asked. "It gives you the power to make decisions for her," Clara explained, as if to a child. "Medical, and more importantly, financial. You tell her it is just a formality, in case of an emergency. She signs it. You can sign the closing papers on the house for her, and we are done with this. She will never even know until the money is gone." I sat in the darkness of Jim's car, watching my son raise his glass of champagne to toast the woman who was helping him orchestrate my final ruin. This was not just theft. This was an erasure. They were planning to steal my name, my mind, my very legal existence. The betrayal was complete. The drive back from Cherry Creek was silent. The sound of their laughter, the tinny clink of their champagne glasses over the microphone, echoed in my head. I felt hollowed out, scoured. Back in Jim's kitchen, the adrenaline from the surveillance faded, replaced by a cold, confusing dread. "Jim, I still do not understand," I said, the words feeling heavy, clumsy. We were drinking coffee, though it was nearly midnight. It was not for the warmth. It was just something to hold on to. The condos, maybe. If he forged my signature, he could try. But this house, it is in my name, and my name only. He cannot sell it. He cannot list it. He certainly cannot close a sale without my signature on the deed transfer. He knows that. And that woman, Clara, she is a lawyer. She knows he cannot do it. I shook my head, pacing the small kitchen. This talk of a medical power of attorney? I would never sign that. Never. So how does he think he can just sell my house? Jim did not answer right away. He was at his own desk, his face illuminated by the green glow of his computer monitor. He had been digging ever since we got back. "He is acting like a man who has already won," Jim said, his voice a low rumble. "He believes your signature is irrelevant. He thinks he has found a way around it." He clicked his mouse, scrolling through a screen I could not read. When I was running his background, I focused on the debts, the casinos, the lenders, but I missed something. I was looking at what he owed, not what he was paying for. He pointed to a line item on his screen. He has been making regular payments, once a month, for the last 3 months. Started almost the same week he moved in. It is not a loan. It is a retainer. A retainer. For another lawyer. No, Jim said. He stood up and turned on the small kitchen lamp, as if he needed to see my face clearly for what came next. The payments are going to a facility, a place called Serene Meadows Care Home. The name sounded lovely, gentle, like the spa I was supposed to be at. Serene Meadows, I repeated. Is it some kind of resort, a place he is planning to take Clara with my money? Jim's eyes were filled with a profound, weary sadness. No, Margaret. I know the name. I had to place a retired officer there years ago. His family was devastated. He paused, clearly bracing me. It is not a spa. It is not a resort. It is a long-term, high-security residential facility. It is a place for people with advanced dementia. It is a locked ward. It is. He finished, his voice flat. A nursing home for people who do not know who they are anymore. I gripped the edge of the counter. The tile was cold. 3 months. 3 payments. The fall on the steps. The sudden, suffocating care. The way he insisted on helping me with my mail. The moving of my office. Hiding my life's documents. The new lock. It was all so clear now. The medical power of attorney was not a document he was going to ask me to sign. It was a document he was going to have granted to him. He is building a case, I whispered, the horror rising in my throat. He is painting a picture, the confused old mother, the fall, the forgetfulness. He is going to find a doctor, probably one of Clara's connections, to sign a piece of paper. He will say I am incompetent, a danger to myself. And then he petitions the court. Jim finished, his voice like iron. He requests an emergency guardianship. He is the loving, devoted son, the only family I have. The court will grant it. He will not need your signature, Margaret. He will have the legal right to sign for you. He will be you. This was the plan. This was the asset he was moving. Me. He was not just going to steal my money. He was going to steal my life. He was going to sell my house, sell my condos, pay off his debts, and lock me away in a place where I would be forgotten. He was going to erase me. The betrayal was not financial. It was absolute. He was not just a thief. He was my executioner. He was going to bury me alive. Serene Meadows. That was not just an expense. That was his entire plan. For 2 days, I lived in Jim Henderson's guest room. I watched my son leave my house in the morning and return at night. I watched him collect my mail, which he took directly to the locked office. I watched him order pizza, lounge on my patio. He was an occupying force. I was a refugee, staring at my own home through binoculars. The spa trip was my cover, but it was also my prison. Jim was relentless. He was on the phone. He was on his computer. He was a cop again, working his last case. He's getting sloppy, Jim said on Friday afternoon, hanging up his phone. He's not just using cash. He's moving money between accounts. He's leaving a trail. And, he added, he has an appointment tonight, 9 o'clock. A restaurant. Clara? I asked, my voice flat. No, not a restaurant. And not Cherry Creek. Jim looked at the address he had written down. It's an industrial area, east of the highway, a part of town you do not go to after dark. A creditor, I whispered. The collectors. I don't think so. The address is for a medical clinic, a 24-hour urgent care. We were parked by 8:45 p.m. We were 300 feet away, hidden in the shadows of a defunct warehouse, facing a squat, concrete building. The sign flickered, half the neon letters dead. 5-star urgent care. It was the opposite of its name. The parking lot was empty, save for a single rusted pickup truck and a dumpster. This was not a place for healing. This was a place for transactions. Julian's SUV pulled in at 9 o'clock sharp. He parked, but he did not get out. He sat in his car, the engine running. He was waiting. He was nervous. Even from this distance, I could see his head constantly swiveling, scanning the empty lot. At 10 minutes past 9, a side door to the clinic opened. A man stepped out, pulling a white doctor's coat on over a stained polo shirt. He looked old, tired, and deeply unhappy. He had the grey pallor of a man who worked under fluorescent lights and saw things he would rather forget. He walked over to Julian's car. Julian rolled down the passenger side window. They spoke for a few moments. "That's our man," Jim said. He had his professional camera with him, a long telephoto lens attached. He did not use it. Not yet. Julian got out of the car. He walked around to the passenger side, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a thick, white envelope. I did not need to be a financial planner to know it was cash. It was bulky, too thick for a simple copay. The man in the white coat, Dr. Vance, as we later learned, had a clipboard. He took the envelope from Julian. He did not count the money. He just held the clipboard out. Julian took a pen from his pocket and signed something at the bottom of the page. Then Dr. Vance handed Julian a sheaf of papers, a formal stack, stapled in the corner. Julian took them, his hand shaking slightly. He flipped through the first page, nodding. "Now," Jim whispered. The click of the camera shutter was deafening in the silence of our car. Click, click, click. Jim was not just taking a picture. He was documenting. He captured Julian's face, clear in the streetlight. He captured the doctor, pocketing the envelope. He captured the moment of the exchange, the papers passing from one hand to the other. "Get the papers," I urged, my voice tight. "Can you read the papers?" "I'm trying." "He's holding them too close." Jim muttered, the lens moving. Julian was still standing there, reading. "Come on, son. Angle it. Show us what you bought." As if responding to Jim's command, Julian turned slightly, angling the top page to catch the light. Jim's breath hissed out. Click, click, click. The camera fired off a rapid burst. "I got it," he said. He did not lower the camera. He just zoomed in on the playback screen. He held it up for me to see. The image was grainy, shot from a distance, but the words at the top of the page were clear. They were typed in a large, bold, official-looking font. Emergency Mental Capacity Evaluation. And underneath, a line. Patient Margaret Hayes. "He never examined you," Jim stated, the obvious hanging heavy and brutal in the air. "He never met you. He never spoke to you." "He did not have to," I said. My voice was a dead thing. "My son gave him a diagnosis in a parking lot. He paid for my mind." Jim kept reading from the screen. It says here, "Findings based on extensive family reporting and observation of erratic behavior. It diagnoses you with rapid onset dementia with associated paranoia. It is all signed, Dr. Robert Vance." It recommends immediate intervention and guardianship for your own protection. Julian folded the papers, put them in his inner jacket pocket, got back in his car, and drove away. He had it. He had the weapon, the fall, the forgetfulness, the whispers. It was all here, notarized by a paid-for doctor in a dirty parking lot. He had bought the legal justification to erase me. The spa week was his window. He would file this with the court on Monday. He would have an emergency order before I was even scheduled to come home. The photograph of the evaluation was a death warrant signed in a parking lot. I sat in Jim's guest room. The image burned into my mind. He had it. The weapon was real, and it was in my house, locked in my office. He will file it on Monday, I said, my voice barely a whisper. He will walk into the Denver courthouse at 8 a.m. With that evaluation and Clara's legal maneuvers, he will have an emergency guardianship order by noon. I will be in Serene Meadows by Tuesday. Then we have to get that document, Jim said, his voice hard. The pictures are proof of a crime, but the original document is the crime itself. We have to take it off the board. We had one window. Julian was arrogant, and his arrogance made him predictable. He was a man who celebrated his victory before the final checkmate. Jim's microphone, still tucked neatly under the dash of the rental SUV, had picked up their conversation that morning. Clara had booked a table at the same high-end steakhouse. Saturday night. 8 p.m. A victory dinner. At 8:30 p.m. on Saturday. We watched from Jim's window as the SUV pulled out of my driveway. Julian was in his best suit. Clara was beside him, her blonde hair shining under the streetlights. They were laughing. They were gone. I am giving you 2 hours, maximum, Jim said. He stood by his front door, his phone in his hand. I will be watching the street. The moment I see his car, I call you. You do not argue. You do not finish. You just get out of there. Go out the back door. Over the fence. I understand, I said. I crossed the street, a shadow moving toward my own home. I let myself in the front door with my own key. The house was silent, but it felt desecrated, occupied. I climbed the stairs. Every creak of the wood, a thunderclap in my ears. I stood before my old office door. The brushed nickel deadbolt stared back at me. Julian thought I was just a numbers person. He forgot that I had managed 2 rental properties for 20 years. He forgot about the tenants who lost their keys, the evictions, the number of times I had to deal with cheap locks and stubborn tenants. I was not a professional. But I was not an amateur. I pulled the small pick set from my pocket. I inserted the tension wrench, applying gentle pressure. I slid the pick in, feeling for the pins. 1. Click. 2. Click. 3. He had bought a good lock. I would give him that. The pins were stiff. 4. Click. The 5th one resisted. I held my breath, adjusted the tension, and pushed. A final, solid click. The cylinder turned. I slid the deadbolt open. I did not use the overhead light. I used the small flashlight from my pocket. My office, my sanctuary of files and order, was sterile. My desk and cabinets were pushed against the far wall. In the center of the room sat a squat, grey, fireproof safe, a portable one, with a digital combination lock, of course. He was not stupid enough to leave these documents in a file cabinet. I knelt on the floor, my heart hammering. A 4-digit code. I tried my own birthday. Nothing. I tried the street address. Nothing. I tried to think. Who was Julian? He was selfish. He was arrogant. He was profoundly, fatally narcissistic. His entire world revolved around one person, one date, his birthday, August 4th, 0804. I punched in the numbers. The small electronic beep was followed by a satisfying click. The green light flashed. I turned the handle, and the heavy door swung open. It was all there, organized with a chilling efficiency. I pulled the folders out one by one. The first folder was labeled Casino. Inside were the markers, the demands from the Las Vegas creditors. The total was even worse than Jim thought. Over $500,000. The second folder was real estate. My stomach turned to ice. Inside were purchase and sale agreements, not drafts. Fully executed copies, one for each of my condos and one for my house. All three were listed as sold to a numbered LLC I had never heard of. And at the bottom of the signature page for each, in flowing blue ink, was my name, Margaret Hayes. It was a perfect forgery of my signature. Clara's work, no doubt. Next, I found it. The original, stapled document from Dr. Vance. Emergency mental capacity evaluation? But there was something else beneath it. Something worse. It was a single document. Heavy cardstock. Durable power of attorney. It granted Julian Hayes full, immediate, and unconditional authority over all financial and medical decisions for Margaret Hayes. And there, at the bottom, was my forged signature, beside a notary stamp. I looked closer at the stamp. The notary's name was Clara. He did not need to petition a judge. He was not planning to file for guardianship on Monday. He already had it. This forgery, combined with the doctor's report, gave him the power to do anything, and at the very bottom of the safe, I found the final piece. It was a thin folder from Serene Meadows. It was not a brochure. It was an admissions packet. It was a receipt for the first month's residential care, marked paid in full. It was dated 2 days ago. He was not just planning to sell my house. He had already sold it. He was not just planning to forge my name. He had already forged it. He was not just planning to lock me away. He had already paid the deposit. I was looking at the receipts for my own burial. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a cold, precise rage. I did not bother to put the folders back. I took everything. The casino markers, the forged sales agreements, the fraudulent power of attorney, the doctor's report, the receipt for my own internment. I left the safe open and empty, walked out of my office, and locked the door behind me. I crossed the street to Jim's house, holding the stack of papers against my chest. He did not just plan it, I said, laying the forged deeds on Jim's kitchen table. He has already done it. He sold everything. Jim looked at the forged signature on the power of attorney, and his face hardened. Not tonight, he has not. He did not pause. He did not second guess. He picked up his phone. We are not waiting until morning. We are going to your lawyer. Now. My lawyer, Elena Diaz, was not a woman you called at 11 p.m. on a Saturday unless the building was on fire. I called her anyway. When I said the words, fraudulent power of attorney and Jim Henderson, she just said, my office, 20 minutes. Diaz was a shark in a pinstripe suit, a woman whose sharpness I had always valued in financial planning, and now I would value in war. We sat in her sterile, glass-walled conference room under the harsh fluorescent lights, the city dark outside. I laid the documents on the polished mahogany table, the sales agreements, the POO. the Vance evaluation, the Serene Meadows receipt. She read them, one by one, her expression unreadable. She spent a full minute just looking at my forged signature on the POA, comparing it to my driver's license. "This is not fraud, Margaret," she said finally, her voice cold. "This is a conspiracy to commit kidnapping. This is attempted murder, just without a gun. They are trying to disappear you." Jim placed his own evidence on the table, the long lens photographs of the cash exchange with Dr. Vance. Diaz looked at the photos, then at Jim. "This is our leverage. They moved too fast." She turned to Jim. "Your friends at the department, how good are they?" "They are old school," Jim said, "and they hate this kind of scum." While Diaz began typing furiously on her laptop, drafting injunctions, Jim made a call. He spoke in his old cop voice, quiet and authoritative. He sent the photos. We waited. The call came back 40 minutes later. "He is dirty," Jim said, hanging up. "Dr. Vance is already the target of a state-level investigation for insurance fraud. He has been writing fake diagnoses for pill mills for 5 years. They have been trying to get a solid, direct payment for fraud case on him. We just gave it to them. They will have a warrant for him by Monday." Diaz looked up from her laptop. "Good. While they handle the doctor, we handle the children." Her fingers flew. "I am filing emergency restraining orders and injunctions against Julian, Clara, and this LLC. I am freezing all your assets, effective first thing Monday morning. I will be at the courthouse when it opens. Those sales are dead. The POA is void. By 9 a.m., your son will not be able to buy a cup of coffee with your name." "Then what?" I asked. "We stop him, but we do not have him." "Oh, he is not just going to be stopped," Diaz said, a grim smile touching her lips. "He is going to be caught, red-handed." She leaned forward. "This is the trap. You are going back to that house. Margaret, you are going to come home from your trip tomorrow, just as planned. You are the star of this show." "He has the forged POA," I said. "He has the report. He thinks he has won." "Exactly," Diaz said. "And you are going to let him believe it. You are not a financial planner. You are a frail, confused, sweet old woman who had a lovely, but very tiring, trip. You are fuzzy from the flight. You are going to be exactly the woman Dr. Vance described. The taxi dropped me off at my curb on Sunday afternoon. I saw the curtain in Julian's room, my old office, twitch. I stepped out of the cab, deliberately missing the curb, stumbling slightly. I let my suitcase drop, as if it were too heavy. Before I could even get my keys, the front door opened. Julian was there, his face a perfect mask of concern. "Mum, you're back here. Let me get that?" He practically lifted me up the stairs. Clara was in the kitchen, a picture of domesticity, wiping down a counter. "Margaret, welcome home. You look exhausted." "Oh, I am," I murmured, letting my purse slide off my shoulder onto the floor. "The flight was... it was all so much. I think I left my glasses on the plane. Or maybe at the spa. I just cannot seem to remember." I watched them. I watched the look they exchanged over my head. It was not concern. It was triumph. It was the look of predators confirming their prey was wounded. I spent the rest of the day playing the part. I asked the same question about dinner 3 times. I misplaced my teacup. I sat in the living room, staring blankly at the television, sighing. They were all over me, suffocating me with their care. "Mum, You really seem off, Julian said, his voice dripping with false sympathy, kneeling beside my chair. I am worried about you. I am just tired, dear, I said, patting his hand. My head feels so fuzzy. I know, Mom, he said, his smile tight. And I think it is time we got you some help managing things, so you do not have to worry anymore. He and Clara exchanged another look. This was it. I have already set up a meeting for us tomorrow morning, Julian said, his voice smooth as oil. With my financial planner, a wonderful man. We will just go over a few papers, just some simple things to sign, so I can take care of all the boring bills for you. You will not have to think about a thing. I looked up at him. My son. My attempted murderer. I gave him the most beatific, confused smile I could muster. Oh, Julian, I said, my voice trembling slightly. What would I do without you? Julian held my arm as we walked into the building, his grip supposedly supportive but feeling proprietary, like a warden handling a prisoner. Clara's law office was exactly as I had imagined, cold, modern, and expensive, all glass and brushed steel, sitting high above the city. It was a place designed to legitimize theft. They led me to a grand conference room. Clara was already seated at the head of a long, polished mahogany table, radiating smug victory. A nervous-looking man in an ill-fitting suit sat beside her, fiddling with a notary stamp. He was their witness, their accomplice. Margaret, thank you for coming, Clara said, her voice dripping with a sickly, condescending sweetness. We are just so relieved you are letting us help. You look tired. Please, sit. Julian pulled out the chair for me, patting my shoulder. I sat, allowing myself to look frail, my hands trembling slightly as I placed my purse on the floor. As we discussed, Clara continued, sliding a stack of documents across the table, at least 50 pages thick, bound in a blue legal cover. These are just some routine papers, standard wealth management forms. It just moves the day-to-day management of your properties and accounts to Julian, so you do not have to worry about a thing. She fanned the pages open to the last one, where a dozen signature lines were marked with yellow "Sign Here" flags. If you will just sign here, and here, and here, we can let you get home and rest. The notary pushed a heavy, expensive pen toward me. I placed my hand on the signature page. I stared at it. I did not pick up the pen. Instead, I looked up, past Clara, past the notary, and settled my gaze directly on my son. He was watching me with a terrible, eager anticipation. I let the tremor in my hands stop. I straightened my back. The fuzziness I had been performing for 36 hours evaporated, replaced by the cold, precise focus of a financial planner who had just found a critical error in an audit. Do you really think, I said, my voice clear and strong, that I am that stupid? Julian. Julian's smile froze, then cracked. Clara's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. What did you just say? She spat. I asked, I repeated, pushing the stack of papers back toward her. If you thought I was stupid, or just old. Mum, you are confused. Julian started, his voice rising in panic. The trip was lovely. I cut him off. Especially the part where I sat in Jim Henderson's guest room for a week, watching you try to sell my life. Before Clara could speak, before Julian could form another lie, the glass doors to the conference room swung open. Elena Diaz, my real lawyer, walked in. This meeting is over, she announced, Behind her was Jim Henderson, and behind him, 2 uniformed police officers. "What is the meaning of this?" Clara shouted, jumping to her feet. "This is a private legal consultation. You are trespassing." "Clara Reeves," one of the officers said, stepping forward, his voice booming in the quiet room. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation of an elderly person." "You have no proof," she shrieked, but her face was the color of ash. "We have quite a bit," Diaz said, pulling a file from her own briefcase, "including the testimony of a Dr. Robert Vance, who was arrested an hour ago, facing a decade in prison for federal insurance fraud. He was remarkably cooperative. He detailed the cash bribe, the fraudulent dementia diagnosis, and the entire conspiracy you engineered." The second officer moved toward Julian, who had sunk back into his chair, his face slack with disbelief. Mom. No. Please. I had to. The debt. Julian Hayes, the officer said, pulling out his handcuffs. "You are also under arrest. Stand up, please." As they pulled my son to his feet, the sound of the metal cuffs clicking shut was the most satisfying sound I have ever heard. Julian was weeping now, snot and tears running down his face. "Please, Mum, do not let them. I am your son." I stood up. I walked over to the table, opened my own purse, and pulled out the single sheet of paper I had kept, the receipt. I threw it on the polished table in front of him. "Serene Meadows," I said. He stared at it. "You sold my home to pay your debt," I said, my voice quiet, cold, and final. "Now, you will pay your debt in another residential facility. And Julian," I said, leaning in close, "you will never see another cent. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to connect with all of you. So please drop a comment below and let me know where in the world you are listening from. Be sure to subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary and like this video. And if you can, please hit that hype button to help this story reach more people who need to hear it.